Welcome to the December Wealth Advisory Review. I hope you're having a wonderful Christmas season and that as we move closer to Christmas, you're getting all of your preparations put together, your Christmas lights hung out, your gifts wrapped, maybe purchased in some cases, and ready for all the good times with family. And hopefully this will just be a continuation of your Thanksgiving holiday where you had a chance to get together with family and enjoy your time as well. I have to tell you, this is Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I love that the most. However, I would say that obviously Christmas is a very close second. I love Thanksgiving because it's a time to remember and be thankful. Sometimes Christmas doesn't quite seem that way, but it's still a great time to be with family and friends. And
Have a good night.
we have several parties planned for the meeting with friends and clients and so on. So looking forward to that as well. All right. So as we get started here for the Wealth Advisor Review for the month of December, got a number of things to share with you. A lot of new things, actually. A couple of, well, I say a lot. It is a lot, actually. A couple of new things that I'm excited about. So I'll share that with you here. One of those things is we're trying a new version of GoToWebinar, and it has been a little finicky. So hopefully tonight's going to work out well. As always, we have time for the important disclosures, which are really just reminders for you that no matter what we do, no matter what's recommended, you need to review that with your advisors. Hopefully you feel comfortable you can talk to me about some of these items as well as any other tax or legal professionals, accounting, etc. that you are looking at, because while every investment has its positives, it also has negatives. You want to make sure you choose wisely for your situation based on your needs for growth or income, your risk tolerance, the flexibility you need, the various pieces that are important to you to make sure that everything works out well. Stephanie, I think your mic is on. As always, we have time for questions at the end. If you have questions, you can either just hit the question mark button and we'll be happy to answer those, or you can raise your hand. And I say the question mark button, it's the chat box. You can chat your question there, or if you'd like to talk online here where we can hear you, you can raise your hand. I think under the new software, we can actually go ahead and do that again. So looking forward to that. But either way, if you have questions, we will save those to the end, and hopefully that will help you with whatever you need to make this as valuable for you. Today, we're going to cover a number of items, the market and economic review. We're going to continue our discussion about getting ready for spring planning. I'm going to talk tonight about your plus-minus income gap, your plus-minus wealth gap, and your plus-minus income and wealth gap, and how those can change situationally. We're going to talk about setting goals for 2024 and beyond. I'm going to share with you my final thoughts from this event and then answer any questions you have, and then remind you of what's coming as we go into next year, 2024, for the next Wealth Advisory Review. One of the things we've been excited to share with you is for you attending, there is a complimentary ebook called Unlocking the Treasures of Your Financial Wellness. This ebook is available to you ahead of everybody else because you're attending the webinar tonight. This will be coming out to everybody else later this week, but we're giving it, I actually probably the first of next week, but we're giving it to you early. Now, the way you can access it if you want to is on the toolbar. There is now a little button that shows a picture of it looks like a document with a paper clip. If you click on that, you can download that box, that ebook. I'll just show you quickly what the ebook looks like. So, Unlocking the Treasures of Your Financial Wellness talks about various aspects, gives you some of the facts and figures regarding the population in America, gives you some items that fit very nicely into our discussion with spring planning for you. Learn, live, learn, and love is how I'd phrase it. Setting goals, creating a budget, operating on the planning, good stewardship mentality, saving, and professional association help, and not just with me, even though it says me, it's everybody involved. It would be anybody who's on your team helping you to have accomplish the goals you have and achieve the desires you have. This is available for you, and you can certainly share it with friends or family if you'd like to. That is also available to you. They can also come to our website next week and be able to download a free copy themselves if they'd like, and we'd be more than happy to share that with you and for them as well. New controls are slightly different, and I have to move things around a little bit to get to things. Sorry. We have a phrase around here that we use called "the first is the worst." Every time you do something the first time, it's going to be the worst it'll ever be, and hopefully it won't be too problematic down the road. All right, so anyway, that's available to you. You can actually go to the download materials or content right on your bar and then access this, and it'll load it right to your computer for you. And if you aren't able to do that, please let us know. We'll be happy to email you a copy of it right after this meeting or tomorrow morning. So whereas I normally pull up the airplane with the 4 engines on it, I'm going to do a little differently now. We've been doing something for the last number of months. I know that some of you have checked it out and been using it, but many of you haven't. I wanted to do this as a way to encourage you to see data sooner rather than waiting for the month if you want to. We have a resource that we use on our website. It also sends out emails on a weekly basis where it talks about the financial data that we're pulling together. These are examples of the 2 last posts that we did that talked about the economy, the market, where things are. We take a look at the various pieces, and while this isn't the only place I pull data from, tonight's webinar, I decided to go ahead and use this because I don't disagree with the sort of outcome here that I would normally show you on the airplane with the pluses and plus minuses. I know that there is a lot of concern about the economy. I understand it. I also hold some of that trepidation as well. But at the same time, I can't ignore the fact that there are a lot of really interesting, positive things happening as well. And so my encouragement to you is that these emails come out to you. You can take a moment to read through them. They should give you some update, some maybe more current insight before we have our next webinar advisory review. So that way you kind of know where I'm thinking, where I'm coming from as well. None of this would change the fact that if something catastrophic happened, we wouldn't have an impromptu webinar right in the middle of the month to make sure that was taken care of. So there's several ways you can get these. You can get these first off through the emails that come to you. Second off, if you are on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can go to both of those places and get that. We don't include this on Twitter yet. That will be something down the road. But Facebook or LinkedIn. Now, I will tell you that because of Facebook and how it functions, we typically put more lighthearted, interesting sort of, travel or cooking or hobby kind of stuff on Facebook. Occasionally we'll put something like this on there, but we tend to put more of the lighthearted stuff onto Facebook. We typically put more of the numbers and facts stuff on LinkedIn. So you can go there if you have a LinkedIn connection. And if you don't, I'm going to come over here and show you this. If you don't have a LinkedIn connection, you can go right to our website. And you can go to the menu, and you can go to educational resources, go to the blog, and as soon as this loads up, you will find those various posts. What to know when your child turns 18, weekly market insights, Stock Spark late week rally, 2023 recap and 2024 outlook, key events, what may be in store, weekly market insights, stocks rise as bond yields fall, weekly market insights. And you can tell by the dates here that we're putting these on a weekly basis, and in some cases a couple of times a week. It depends on what we're doing here and how we're putting this information out. So not only are we doing the monthly advisory review, but we're giving you information on a weekly basis, either through email, through your social media where you check more often, or you can come to the website and just see what's up there if you'd like to do. And again, that is found on the menu here down to educational resources, and then you'll go right to the blog, and there it is. There are other resources I'm going to be talking about as we come into next year as well that we're putting on there. The ebook that we just did, for instance, is available to you early because you attended this advisory review. We're going to be putting out more of those for you as well. And then along with the advisory review itself, which is recorded and left here on the website and on our YouTube channel. we're really working hard, and even more so as we move into 2024, to make sure there's plenty of resources so that our clients can access information in whatever way they like to, so they can then understand what's going on and how we see things happening. In between times, they might talk to me or our team to make sure that everything is working well for you. So now let me get this restarted again. So like I said, these are just a couple of examples of the posts. What I would say looking through the data here, and if you just kind of glance even at this one here. So this was just a couple of weeks ago. We had GDP surge to 5.2% in Q3, which was amazing. We don't know what Q4 is yet, but we will find out. Increases due to stronger than expected business investment and government spending. Non-residential fixed investments rose 1.3%. Government spending increased 5.5%. And while on one hand we might not like the government spending more, we really think they should cut their budget a bit. It does feed into the spending numbers and the profit numbers for corporations and such. Despite a slight downward revision, consumer spending still grew at 3.6%, and corporate profits accelerated to a whopping 4.3%. So there's a lot of pieces out here that, despite any sort of doom and gloom that we may personally feel as we look at inflation or high cost of living or what's happening with being able to get loans at the banks, and those are definitely challenges, no doubt, and those definitely could precipitate a recession. But again, as I said in our last review, we've been expecting a recession for the last 6 quarters, and it hasn't happened yet. I don't certainly think that means it can't. I would also say that a soft landing, because of how the Fed raised interest rates, does concern me a bit. But again, at this point in time, we're not seeing any fruit out of that yet that is negative. We're looking at mostly the positives right now, keeping our eye out for those storm clouds out there to see if they become a problem. But at this point in time, I'd say we're still flying well, and we're going to keep flying that way until we start to see more information. Matter of fact, when I pull up the data for the markets themselves, and I actually left this up here on purpose. This is what I showed you last month, where I showed you that while we had seen the highs go down and the lows go down even further, we had broken through at the end of the month, at least at the time of our last advisory review. Let me go now back to the actual data itself and show you that. So this is the same chart, but it was stopped right about here as of last month, November 9th, November 10th. This is what's happened since we talked last. And so the market has continued to rise, and I'd even point out it broke through recent highs as well and has held. I would also point out that the relative strength indicator shows that it's above the 70% mark, what we're looking for here. We look at the short moving averages, convergence, divergence. They're well above the norm, the high. Matter of fact, if anything, we're looking back here and we see the same kind of numbers and data down here as we did back in June, July, so on. So as we move to the end of this year, it looks very positive for the markets. Now, one of the articles I was just showing you a moment ago talked about how the markets are reading this as a positive, but I think they're sort of symbiotic in the sense that if the economy looks good, the markets look good. If the markets look bad, the economy starts to look not so good. And if the economy looks bad, the markets start to look not so good. They're almost sort of mirror images. So I don't know that I use this as a support system to say, oh, everything's great. The S&P 500 largest companies in America, divided up by 11 different industries, shows a support for growth right now. As we get through the season and get into the first part of next year, being careful, watching with sort of a side-eye look at it and a foot over the brake if we need to. But I would also remind you it's an election year, and historically the markets have done better in election years. So one of those articles pointed that they are expecting the S&P to break 5,000 and maybe even move closer to 6,000. So again, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I would say that I am more optimistic right now than cautious, but I still am very careful with that. And so if you're feeling uncomfortable, again, as always, please talk to us. Be happy to re-examine some opportunities here to take advantage of growth if there is some. And then also, if you're concerned about markets turning down, take a look at ways to protect against that downward experience to make sure that it's not a problem for you as well. So with that in mind, let me go back to our advisory review. I don't know if you can see it. I got the spinning ball of death. There we go. It went away. All right, nice. So I would say that right now the analytics look pretty good. Fundamentally, technically, I feel comfortable, but as always, we're watching carefully, just like you are. All right. As a reminder, based upon where you are, and we're going to talk about more of this as we look at spring planning, the first few months of 2024, remind you that for some of you, you are in the pre-retirement or accumulation phase. Some of you are very close to the top of that mountain, ready to plant your flag and retire, or what we call redirect. Some of you are on the other side of that flag, and you are at the post-retirement or decumulation phase. And so you're looking at some of the issues associated with making withdrawals, especially in light of a potential down market. We talked last time about how making sure that you have a good process for distributing income, even in down markets, because of the reality of what risk return or sequence of risk return can do to your portfolio. And for those of you who are older, looking at end of life issues, making sure that your assets are not crushed because of a health issue or long-term care issue, making sure those are thought through carefully to make sure that the remaining spouse has resources to last to the end of their days. And I'm pleased to report that none of you are in the last phase, the death or transfer phase. You're all here on this call, and I thank God for that, and hope none of you go there for a long, long time. Look forward to working with you for many, many years, either in the pre-retirement or post-retirement phase of your financial journey. So as we look at that, we also are thinking in terms of return on life, making sure that you are getting the benefit that you're looking for, not just the facts and figures, but your desires and feelings of what you want to accomplish. That's all part of this. It's not just simply making sure the numbers are good. That's obvious. But making sure that your enjoyment of what you're doing is also good. That's critical from my viewpoint. So that brings me to the topic I wanted to hit on tonight in regards to setting up our discussions for spring planning. What is your income gap and what is your wealth gap? And it's important to recognize that you could have a positive income gap and wealth gap, or you could have a negative income gap and negative wealth gap, or you could have a negative income gap but a positive wealth gap. So plus, minus, either way, trying to help people identify where they are, not for any other reason than to be able to make sure that it helps them make good decisions going forward. Hopefully everybody on this call has a plus income gap and a plus wealth gap, but if you don't, and that's where the minus income gap and minus wealth gap come in, what we want to do is take a look at every action we can take to move you into a plus income gap or a plus wealth gap in that process. So now, as we talk these terms out, let's talk a little bit more about what this means. So is your income gap plus or minus? And it's important to understand that it's going to be one or the other. So what is income gap? Well, income gap is the difference, plus or minus, between your income and outgo. So for instance, Harry and Mary Arm have monthly income from pensions, IRAs, and Social Security totaling $8,450 a month, while their monthly expenses, or outgo, total $9,300. That's a minus income gap of $850 a month, or $10,200 annually. Now, don't let that trouble you, because if their wealth gap is large enough, it can offset that difference, which I'll explain more in a minute. Now, comparatively, Tom and Allie Katz have monthly income from pensions, IRAs, and Social Security totaling $9,590 a month, while their monthly expenses, or outgo, total $6,900. That's a plus income gap of $2,690 a month, or about $32,280 annually. So whether you have a plus or a minus income gap is obviously a function of your income minus your outgo. And then understanding how that then impacts your wealth gap is the next step on that. So what is the wealth gap? Well, the wealth gap is the difference, plus or minus, between your wealth's ability to support your income gap, while simultaneously lasting until the end of your life. So thinking back to Harry and Mary for a second, Harry and Mary's minus income gap of $10,200 annually, or $594,948, which includes 4% inflation per year over the next 30 years. So we're running on this assumption that Harry and Mary are needing this $10,200 a year extra because their Social Security pensions and IRAs don't produce enough for them to be able to meet that need. So their wealth gap, if we look at that with increasing inflation, 10,200, next year a little bit more, next year a little bit more, for 30 years plus 4% inflation is going to total up to almost $600,000. This requires them to have currently $260,000 of additional wealth earning 7% annually. They don't have to have the whole $594,000 today. They have to have enough to generate the $10,200 per year plus inflation each year. That, and if it's growing at 7% annually, that will get them to 30 years out from now. So let's say they're 60 now, that get them to 90. If they are 65, that would get them to 95. I would also say if they invest more conservatively, that let's say they wanted to invest more conservatively and could generate 6%, then that would change the $260,000 number to a bigger number. They have to have more because they're investing at a more conservative rate. And not that I'm recommending it, but if they were earning 8% annually, that would mean they could have less money and make that happen because the distribution from their wealth plus the earnings the wealth was getting would offset the difference. And so when we're doing spring planning, we're trying to calculate what the income gap is, plus or minus, and then we're also trying to identify what the wealth gap is, plus or minus, to figure out will that get our clients to the end of their life comfortably. So with Harry and Mary's situation, if they were to have $160,000 of investments, they would have a minus wealth gap of $100,000. And conversely, if they had $360,000 of investments, they would have a plus wealth gap of $100,000. Now, back to the mountain for a moment. In the decumulation phase, the post-retirement phase, at the end of their lives, if they lived to 90 and had the resources exactly like we're showing it, they would have more to transfer if they had $360,000 of investment today, meaning their wealth gap would expand into a plus area. And if they had $160,000 and they passed sooner, they still might have resources to transfer. But if they lived to their full life, they would not have enough resources to transfer, and those last few years would be difficult. So that's why we want to understand the income gap and the wealth gap and how the two interconnect to make sure that clients have enough to last as long as they do, have enough wealth, enough finances to last as long as they do. So that's why we're taking a look at these numbers to understand when we do spring planning, helping clients who are doing planning to understand their income gap and their wealth gap is an important discussion here. Plus or minus and how it all fits together is just part of that discussion. Now, it's important to understand that simultaneously, even though a client's income gap and wealth gap may work today, for instance, if we take a look at this top line up here, is their income gap and wealth gap plus or minus during their ideal retirement, meaning that what they're hoping would happen, not the best case, not the worst case, but the most likely scenario. If that's the case, then okay, good, everything might work out well. But then we have to consider, for instance, what if they have a less than ideal retirement? What does that do to their plus minus income gap and wealth gap? Or let's say they have a disability or long-term care need in retirement. Now, if they are older, we might also throw in their health issues as well, plus or minus to their lifestyle needs because of disability, health, long-term care needs, etc. That could change the income and wealth gap significantly. Or it could be plus or minus if a spouse passes away prematurely. That might impact the income gap, putting more responsibility, more distribution requirements from their wealth gap to make up the difference. So while their income and wealth gap may work under an ideal retirement, again, not best case, worst case, but most likely scenario, the other three could change that significantly. So for instance, looking at the wealth gap and income gap as life changes. So continue on with Harry and Mary for a second. If Harry and Mary have adequate investments to meet their minus income gap, that makes it possible to achieve their ideal retirement. What happens if they have that less than ideal retirement? Well, so dramatically increasing their standard of living could equal increasing their minus income gap. And their investments, if they were to decline significantly because of market forces, that could increase their minus wealth gap. And so we'd want to also not only calculate ideally what would happen, but also stress test it to say, well, what happens if these stressors happen? Do Harry and Mary still have enough resources to make it to the end of their life in a less than ideal retirement? Or we can stress test it, for instance, this way. Suppose Harry and Mary experience a health or long-term care need, catastrophically increasing financial expenses because of a long-term care stay or because of a health cost, a health expense. That could increase their minus income gap. And if it did do that, it would then create a really serious danger to their wealth gap because they wouldn't have enough resources to get from where they are to where they need to be. Or if the first spouse passes, in the last example there, Harry or Mary experience a premature death of a spouse, losing an income source. For instance, if you're both on Social Security, one Social Security is going to go away. Typically, it's going to be the lesser of the two Social Securities. That's going to go away. So that means we have to make sure that the wealth gap can make up the difference for the remaining spouse on their income and outgo. Or let's say they had a pension that stopped, as well as Social Security. That puts even more pressure on a plus or minus income gap. And so again, stressing a financial plan to test the limits of it for that purpose is also another piece that we do, because if we haven't looked through that potential, we might be surprised down the road for the remaining spouse if there's not enough wealth gap, plus or minus, to offset the income gap that the remaining spouse is experiencing. So the wealth gap can be impacted situationally by various forces: losing an income source, having increased expenses, having a decline in assets because of market performance. These are all issues that we need to look at carefully to make sure that as we're putting together a client's financial plan, that we're looking at both the ideal situation, the most likely scenario, and then we're stressing it against worst case scenarios to make sure that it's not a problem for both or either spouse. So I want to talk a little bit about setting goals, because as we're talking about these other plus and minus income gaps and wealth gaps, it's important to understand that as we look at where we are today, we're really talking about setting goals. And I'm reminded of what my grandfather would say is, if you aim at nothing, you will hit your target every time. So we try very much to get clients to set some goals for some things that they want to accomplish, both positive and negative. I've talked multiple times about bucket lists and life transitions and so on, but I thought this would be a good time, especially as we're going into the new year, because many people make New Year's resolutions. But I would encourage you, and I'm going to tell you, I don't set New Year's resolutions. I set goals, because New Year's resolutions seem to be something that, and I certainly have done that in my past, I'll set a New Year's resolution, or maybe another way to say it would be, I'm going to resolve to do this. And I resolve to do it until it gets hard, and then I stop doing it. I'm going to resolve to lose 5 pounds. I'm going to resolve to read my Bible every day. I'm going to resolve to, you just name it, whatever it is. But when you set a goal, and I know you can also set a goal and stop doing that as well, but I would suggest that when people set New Year's resolutions, or at least when I did, and many people I've spoken with, they set a resolution, they break it, and they're like, all right, well, I broke it, so it's okay, I can stop doing it. But if you set a goal, and it's a reasonable goal, it's a smart goal, it's a goal that you decide you're committed to, and you drop the ball because it's a goal you've committed to, you can pick the ball up and take off walking again or running. So my encouragement is, don't set New Year's resolutions, set goals. And again, if I'm just using words and a word salad and changing out terms, fine, go ahead and set New Year's resolutions, but don't think of them as something that you'll do as long as you don't fail, because the reality is if you're like me, you're going to fail every time. It's rare that we set a resolution, or a goal for that matter, that we don't make a mistake or drop the ball or miss a target. Matter of fact, I would say that as I set goals for myself each year, if I were to set 10 goals I want to accomplish, easily a third of them I will surpass what my goal was. And then another third, I will achieve the goal and in a timely manner. And the last third, I might miss. I might not get there. And sometimes when that happens, I re-examine and say, you know what, that really wasn't a serious goal after all. I thought it was, but it wasn't, which then feeds back into resolutions versus goals. But I would also say that sometimes I realize I set really good goals, but I set terrible time frames. So when I set a goal, I try to set a realistic time frame for it as well. And by setting a realistic time frame, I actually do a much better job of achieving the goal, which means that some goals, or the goals I'm setting for this year or 2024, as I get to the end of that time period, I might say it's a great goal, but I just need to set it out a little bit further because I set a bad time frame for the goal, but the goal itself is good. So again, that's my little speech on New Year's resolutions versus setting goals, and hopefully that'll help you, because I'm going to tell you that I usually set between 20 and 30 goals a year. And again, what I find is a third of them I achieve, in record time, a third I get to along the way, and then a third that I miss and either have to reset or re-examine whether I want to keep going on that goal or not. So that's my encouragement to you on that. And to add a little bit to that, let me just share a couple of thoughts with you. And this is a very old study. It's crazy how this study is so real, though. A Harvard University study set, I think, from the 50s, to be honest with you. I couldn't find it, but I've seen this story so many times I've come to believe it's true. But I think it's true because I've seen so many results of it in many people's lives I've worked with over these last 3.5 decades. A Harvard University study showed that only 3% of Harvard students in whatever particular year that was set written goals on a regular basis. And the revelation of this study showed that 30 years later, 50% of the total net worth of the entire group was held by just 3% of the group. The 3% that had a habit of setting and writing goals as students, who continue to write goals and review them throughout their adult life. Now, how accurate, how complete this is, I think time would tell. But I think that if you ever set goals and you really worked to achieve them, you will find that you function differently than when you don't set goals. That's why my grandfather's statement, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit your target every time, is really kind of hilarious, but it's true. But if you set goals, you're going to maybe miss the target a bit. But if you keep practicing, pretty soon you're going to hit the target. So first steps in this setting these goals is identify what you value in life. Identify what you value in life. And as Zig Ziglar said, for those of us who are old enough to know who Zig Ziglar is, a goal properly set is a goal halfway reached. And if you identify things that you value in life, this will make it easier for you to set a goal that actually blends with what you really want to accomplish. Make your goals personal goals. Make them things that you've decided are important to you. Set some inspiring goals, goals that are just slightly more than you can believe for. I don't mean set something that you could never achieve, but making a little bit more is a really interesting testimony when you achieve it. It gives you some real good insights into you and others around you. And even your walk with God may be impacted by that thinking as well. Make your goals SMART goals. And I've talked about this before, but that means that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. Specific, make your goal specific and narrow for effective planning. Measurable, make sure your goal and progress are something you can actually quantify or measure. Achievable, make sure you can reasonably accomplish your goal within a certain time frame. Again, as I said before, I'm good at setting goals. Sometimes I'm not so good at time frames. I think I'm better than I am sometimes. So set goals that you can achieve within a certain time frame, and that's going to be critical for several more aspects here. Relevant, make sure that your goals align with your values and long-term objectives. And finally, time-based, set a realistic but ambitious end date to clarify task prioritization and to increase motivation. And to that one, what I would say is this: if you've ever set a goal to go someplace, go see a movie, go on a vacation, maybe you've set a goal to have family over and you got to have dinner ready at whatever time. It's amazing how the closer that time gets, the more you work at it, because it was specific, it was measurable, it was achievable, it was relevant, and it was time-based. I get more accomplished just before I leave for a vacation than I normally do because I know I have to have it done before I leave. And I would encourage you to recognize that all goal setting is that way. So make your goals smart goals, and that will help you in that process. Skip the how to for now. Some of the goals that I set, and you're probably the same, they're too big to understand all the how to's. All you have to know on how to is what your next step is. What I would say is we call it your next 5 moves. I've shared this with you before that uh, grand chess masters are always planning out multiple moves in the future. So identify what you're going to do. But some goals are just too big to know all the how to's. So identify the first few, and that will help you get further down the road as you work with the next set of how to's that you can't quite identify yet. Wrong way. Reveal your goals to trusted friends and advisors. I would be honored if you'd reveal them to me, but you don't have to. But reveal your goals to trusted friends and advisors. Why? Because it somehow makes us more accountable. And we don't want them to laugh at us and say, well, guess you didn't achieve that. And it kind of motivates us a little bit. But pick people who aren't dream stealers. Pick people who are dream supporters, dream encouragers, and they will help you think through this process better. They might even have some ideas to help you accomplish some things. I can't tell you how many times I've shared my goals with friends and team members and people I trust and love, and they've said, well, you know, this could help or that could help, and they've been right. And sometimes because they know my shortcomings, and it makes it smarter for me to make a better decision. Work like it depends on you, and pray because it doesn't. I don't know what your faith walk is, and I'm not trying to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but what I would say is that I have over my life realized that I work hard trying to do my very best, but I pray about it because sometimes there are things that are way out of my control that I find other solutions that come up that are surprising, and it makes for an interesting testimony down the road on some things. Reward yourself for accomplishing goals and stages of larger goals. I will tell you, when I was younger, this number 8 was one that I failed at a lot. It's weird how we set a goal that seems too big for us today, but down the road we achieve it, and somehow, for whatever reason, we devalue it and say, well, if I could achieve it, it must not have been that big a deal. No, it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. And take time to review what happened. I call it the 3 R's: review, renew, refresh. Take a moment to say, you know what, that was good. I didn't think I could do it. Now I know I can. And that will help you down the road with a lot of other resources that you've never really thought of until you get more comfortable taking time to do that. Take action now. It's amazing how action cures fear. And there have been plenty of times that I was afraid to step forward on something. And when I took action, I realized it wasn't that hard. And it's been just an amazing experience to do that. And I've got plenty of things I'm still working on. There's a lot of things I still haven't achieved yet. It's because I'm a young man and I'm working on some things still. But I would encourage you, take action now. Just set some goals and move for them and see what happens with that, because it's amazing. Because Zig was exactly right. A goal properly set is a goal halfway reached. And so with that in mind, you'll find that you can really get there from here with a very smart setting of goals for that. To our end, what we try to do is help you enjoy the journey, because sometimes it's hard to imagine what you want to do. I know that if I sat down with any of you, you could tell me what your values are, what you value, and so on. But sometimes it's hard because we don't always think that way. Sometimes we're so much in the day to day and in the moment by moment that we miss some things that are really big to us. Sometimes the urgent is jumping in front of the important. And so our return on life application, called My Financial Life Plan, is designed to help attach the desires and feelings you have to your finances. And so again, it's got a number of ideas here that are just designed to kind of help you think about some things that you'd like to do that maybe you haven't thought much about doing before. These are items that you value. And I suspect that once you spend some time considering the possibilities, you're going to find that there's a few things in life that you might like to do either in place of some things you're doing now or in addition to some things you're doing right now. Some of you are very busy and are like, I don't have time to do anything extra right now. Maybe that's one of the first things you should do, is start looking at how to open up your time so you could enjoy some of these things as well. That's why we provide this resource, because you have a current time portfolio. All of us have 168 hours a week. And you and I, if you were to go to the application and fill this out, you'd find that you're spending a certain amount of time with family and friends, work and career, downtime, sleeping, health and fitness, personal growth. But for all of us, this number down here is going to be 168 hours. And it's going to be broken up into percents for what you're doing here. But if you go to the next part of it and say, what would I like for that to be? What would I like for these various pieces to be? It's still going to be the same 168 hours, but you can spread the time out differently. And that time portfolio will help you to really achieve some of the things you want to do, whether it's a bucket list or what we call life goals or a transition item that you have to do sometime in the next 2 to 4 years, or maybe that you want to do in the next few years. That's something that is there for you. Again, a resource we do, because what I have learned over time is that almost everything you and I do has financial implications on it. Almost everything. Even the stuff that looks free requires you to have enough money not to go to work that day to be able to enjoy some of that free stuff. So having the capacity to achieve your goals, to identify what you want to accomplish, and then to divide your time up appropriately is all part of what we would call return on life planning. It fits with your financial plan, and it's that piece that makes everything come together well for you. My hope with every one of you is that as we work together over the years, that we'll look backwards, and like with Harry and Mary here, we'll say, well, when you were 58, you accomplished this, and 59, you accomplished this, and 61, you accomplished this. And some of these things may have direct connection to your finances, and some of them may just have financial implications that you had to have in place to make that lifelong journey work out like you wanted it to. That's why I talk so much about your financial journey, because I know that you're on one just like I am. And so by knowing what you want to accomplish and by setting goals and by then using that as part of your planning process, it's how we can help people to make the most of what they have and to achieve not just return on investment and return on equity, but even more so return on life. So that's my hope, and that's why I'm encouraging maybe to set a few more goals this year than what you've done in the past to accomplish some things that you would really like to see achieved. This all fits back into, and normally what I show you here is the triangle that talks about our fiduciary wealth advisory thought processes. It seemed like a mouthful. Fiduciary wealth advisory processes that are designed to help us understand what our clients want and then work to help them achieve that as a trusted advisor in their team. And so, as I have pointed out multiple times, we're all about creating, growing, protecting, and preserving wealth. And so on the creating and growing side, that's where we work with investments designed to help accomplish your goals in the accumulation phase of life, the decumulation or distribution phase of life, and to achieve after you've passed the end of life issues, transfer phase. And then simultaneously protecting, risk mitigation, distinctive tax, trust, and insurance management solutions designed to mitigate risk, make it so that you can protect your assets, your family from catastrophic loss of wealth and income. And so on this three-legged stool, we have your investment strategies. On this side, we have your risk mitigation solutions. In the middle here, we have your personal financial plan, realizing your retirement readiness. Because I can tell you, I'm working with several people right now who are trying to figure out, am I ready to retire? Not just do I have the finances, do I have everything in place, but also, am I just personally ready? Because that's as much a part of this as anything. If you don't have goals set for retirement, if you don't know what your bucket list looks like, if you don't know what transitionally you want to do next, it makes retirement harder or redirection harder. But when you know what your finances are good, your risk solutions are adequate to meet your needs, that you have a plus or minus income gap, but the wealth gap will offset it, you're good to go. That's where we come to the planning piece down here, the third leg, or which I actually call the first leg, the unique possibilities for your wealth advisory plan designed to provide you the information necessary to make intelligent financial decisions for you, your family, and future generations. That makes it so you can achieve your personal return on life goals, because that's our goal always, is to help you achieve that for you, your family, and if you're a business owner, your business as well. To that point, we always remind you of the website and the various options we have there. Again, you go to the login section. It brings you to this page here, which accesses your personal financial dashboard through eMoney that we can use to help you extrapolate out or stress test some of these various things to identify your best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios. Your portfolio dashboard, which is how we help you review the investments we're working with directly, so that you can then make sure that we're doing that return on investment, return on equity you're looking for. Your Riskalyze application, which is designed to help you understand the risk that your risk tolerance on a scale of 1 to 99, and then compare that to your existing portfolios with us and outside of us, so you can make sure that you're invested accordingly for your type. And then what I've been talking about here a lot tonight is your financial life plan, which ties your life goals and life transitions, your feelings and desires, to the other three facts and figures information as well. So those tools bring about some of these pieces plus a lot more. You got your financial dashboard, which gives you available information 24/7, 365. You've got the report suites that are available for your reporting needs, making so you can answer questions if you have to pull up information for your accountant or for your banker or whatever. Electronic Vault, available 24/7, 365 for important document storage needs. Again, God forbid your house catches on fire and you can't get your box out, or like in Florida, you got a hurricane comes, you can't get your box. You have that electronic vault where all of your important documents are stored. Planning and wealth management reviews every 4 months for our planning clients. The first 4 months are focused on spring planning. The second 4 months are focused on investment and risk mitigation or insurance tax review. And then the last 4 months are focused on current tax situations and future tax situations, as well as estate design, beneficiaries, and so on, to make sure that your plan, your financial journey, is going to go like you want it to. Beneficiary, estate design, and income tax review upon request. If we need it before or after we've done it at the third trimester of the year, we're happy to do that. Annual risk management assessment for insurance programs, property and casualty, life, health, etc. The ROL, or return on life review and update of your transitional life goals. And then, of course, these monthly advisory review webinars updating you on wealth management strategies and economic and market issues. These are many of the tools that we use to help with, plus a lot more that you have access to now. Some of you are aware about, some of you haven't talked about yet, so you haven't seen it, but there's a lot we're trying to do to make sure that we can be that fiduciary advisor to help you with your team to accomplish your goals. Now, spinning ball of death tonight. So some of my final advisory thoughts for today. One, we're continuing, and you should too, the economic and market conditions because of recessionary concerns. Although I will tell you that if we don't end up in recession next year, we'll probably talk about in 2025, to be honest, because there's always going to be a recession sooner or later. But I think that if we don't in the first few months of next year, it might be a decent year. But we're watching carefully to make sure that we're on top of that with you and for you. Knowledgeable financial planning can empower your financial future. That's why I spend so much of our wealth advisory reviews talking about these issues. Understanding your plus minus income gap in best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios is crucial or critical to managing wealth wisely. Understanding how your plus minus wealth gap is impacted by situational income gaps is crucial to managing your wealth wisely today, tomorrow, and for future generations. Setting goals for 2024 and beyond is very important for maximizing your return on life. Adding your desires and feelings to the facts and figures that contribute to your family's enjoyment of your financial future increases real value for your life and theirs. And then, as I've said to you many times before, fiduciary wealth advisory requires a dynamic financial planning strategy to help you and your family manage wealth wisely in today's complex economic environment. So if you have questions, get ready. You can raise your hand or you can chat me those and I'll go through those. I'm going to go ahead and move past this for a second, but I'll come back to it when we get to the end here. Our next, I changed this, I thought I did. Okay, I changed the date. It's supposed to say January 16th. We didn't catch that, and my proofreaders didn't catch that, but it's supposed to be January 16th. So mark it on your calendar, January 16th, 2024 at 5:30. We'll be coming back to do another wealth advisor review, taking a look at the markets, the economy, investment, insurance, risk mitigation, and planning strategies as well. Again, January 16th, not December 16th. All right, so in review, hopefully you've got some insight into the market and economic situation we're in right now. Hopefully you're a little more prepared for spring planning, understanding a little bit more about your plus minus income gap, your plus minus wealth gap, and how those can change situationally based on various events in your life and in the world. Setting goals for 2024 and beyond. Hopefully I encourage you a little bit to maybe do some more of that than you've done. Shared my final thoughts with you, and we're going to answer questions here, and I've updated you on the next investor advisory review, which is January 16th. Now, again, as a reminder, because you're here tonight, you can unlock the treasures of your financial wellness with our complimentary ebook. That's going to come out next week, but you can certainly go ahead and access it tonight. It's there in the panel with the little button that has like a document and a paper clip on it. You should be able to access it there and download it. If for some reason you can't, email us and we'll be happy to send you a copy first thing tomorrow. And I would remind you again, check out the weekly updates. We're emailing them to you. I know that some of you are opening them up. I know that others of you aren't. We also put that on the website so you can access it that way. And then if you're using social media with Facebook or LinkedIn, you can access it there as well. We're trying very much to help give you all the information so you can make informed, intelligent decisions. Last piece, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from all of us to all of you. Again, I said it at the Thanksgiving or November Wealth Advisor Review, but we really do appreciate you more than you probably know. We work hard to try to get it right for you every time. I know that sometimes we drop the ball. I know that sometimes we mess something up or get something wrong here or there, but we always try very much to make it right for you, and hopefully you know that. We care about you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and we love you. We want the best for you always, even to the point that sometimes it's not our best interest to do it, but we're trying our very best to do that for you. That, in my mind, is what fiduciary really means, is that I try to understand you and then help you accomplish your goals. And if there's a place where we can do that, we're always looking for that. So as we move into 2024, I'm excited about 2024 and looking forward to seeing how we can help you get even further down the road to accomplishing what you want to do. Again, as always, if you would like to invite friends or family to these updates, we'd be honored to have them here. Because this is open to everybody, you can just simply say to Kayla, hey, would you send so-and-so an invitation? And we'll be happy to do it. And for those of you who have sent that, you know that we don't ever call them and say, hey, we know you attended. Do you want to do some business with us? We don't do that. A friend of mine calls that commission breath or sales breath or something like that. I personally just want to make sure that we have information available for people. And to that point, they can actually just come to the website and watch this one now. Well, it won't be able to. It'll be another week or so. But they can watch this one or previous ones, and they don't even have to let us know anything about them. And we're happy to share that information with them as well. So now I'm looking here to see if there's any questions. Can chat. Let's see if there's any chat going on. Again, this is that new panel, so I'm learning too, quite honestly. So it doesn't look like there's any chat there going on. I don't see any hands raised. It's now 6:25, so I'm going to be getting off here 5 minutes early. Look at that, 5 minutes early. That's my Christmas gift to you. So you go enjoy your time with your family and have dinner, and hopefully you'll have a fantastic week and an amazing Christmas time with family and friends, etc. I'm just kind of talking slow here for a second in case any questions come up. If there aren't any questions, then I'm going to, oh, there's a question right there. Well, I don't know if it's a question, it's a chat. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Diane is always commenting at the end, and I appreciate that so much, Diane, that you comment. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well, and to all of you. I don't know about you, but I am excited about 2024. Don't know what it holds, but I know my plans, what I'm working on, and I'm expecting to see some very exciting things happen next year, and I hope you are the same as well. If you have any questions, though, before January 16th with our next advisor review, please do not hesitate to call, email, let us know what the questions are. We are here for you as always. And so until next month, look forward to talking to you then. But I'm going to get some dinner right now with Jane and have a great evening with her. And I look forward to talking to you all very, very soon. So have a fantastic evening, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I will talk to you next year. God bless.